Welcome to the BNB Investing Podcast for real estate investors, fix and flippers, and realtors exploring investment options with Airbnbs and short-term rentals through acquisition, leasing, or management to generate consistent monthly revenue. Join us for a chat with experienced and successful short-term rental investors to hear their story of how they got started and created wealth by building scalable businesses. We also explore various service providers and lenders that help make our businesses more efficient and maximize revenue in this awesome sharing economy. Welcome your host, Rich Monroe.
Hey everyone, Rich Monroe here with BNB Investing Group. Thanks for jumping on with us this week. BNB Investing Group is a group for aspiring and existing real estate investors that are active in the short-term rental market. And we kind of navigate the differences between managing properties, doing master lease strategies, and doing acquisitions. And so this week, I'm happy to have my good friend Brandon Thompson on with us. Brandon actually did an interview with me on one of his podcasts many, many years ago. And I figured he would be able to come on and jump on with us and kind of return the favor. So Brandon, thanks so much for coming on and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Thank you for the invite. So currently my wife and I, we own a company called Southern Charm Vacay, multiple companies actually, but Southern Charm Vacay is our property management site. And we've got properties all over the South, 25 short-term rentals. So that's definitely something I need to talk about since we're all short-term rentals or aspiring short-term rental owners. But I also have a brokerage, STR Wealth Brokers of Georgia, and we help people purchase properties here in Georgia in multiple different markets: coastal Georgia, North Georgia, Atlanta, if you qualify, obviously, and then everywhere else. So Columbus, Macon, great markets. Outside of that, we've got a company called Live Oak Capital, and that is a 506B fund for accredited investors. And basically, we're building houses and remodeling houses and also doing hard money lending. And if an investor that's accredited wants to make a return, a higher return that the banks are giving, based on what they put into our fund, we pay out 8 to 11.25%, and we utilize that money to provide affordable housing to the community in the suburbs of Atlanta. I dare not go into Metro Atlanta inside the city limits and or Fulton County anymore. I'm done with that. But that's pretty much what we do full time.
All right, and so just so that everybody's clear, you started out and still do today doing a lot of rehabs of properties and kind of fix and flips and kind of built that into a larger operation. And so, how many houses have you guys done through fix and flips?
Well, I started in this business at 20 years old, and I'll be 41 next week on Wednesday. So I got 21 years ago. We've done a couple thousand projects, and that's been over my career. I was doing about 150 homes a year with a former business partner. Say 2012 to 2018. We separated in 2018. We're about killing ourselves, but I continued to flip. Until 2021, and then 2021 I was doing short-term rentals for really since about 2013, and noticed that we had 8 or 9 and they were doing really, really well. So I'm gonna take my focus off of flipping, because I remember the conversation I had with you. I'm not gonna flip a house unless I make $50,000 or more. The short-term rental stuff is really, really good for you. And then I was looking at my portfolio and realized that, man, that's really, really good. Let's move my flip crews to North Georgia, which is very close to Atlanta. And we started flipping. We started remodeling homes that we were buying direct to seller. So I took my flip, the stuff that I was doing to get direct seller listings. The direct to seller leads over in the suburbs of Atlanta. And I was doing that in North Georgia. We got some really, really good deals, and we basically did the Burr method. We remodeled them, refinanced them, and repeat. And here we are. Just started building houses and remodeling again this year, back in January. So took a 1.5-year break. And but that's I don't know if that was to answer your question. I went in a little wild tangent there, but that's pretty much it.
No, I mean, I guess the point here is, and those of you that are jumping on, if you wouldn't mind, throw yes in the comments if you can hear us okay. Just want to make sure that we're coming loud and clear. So, I mean, so the rehab business was really kind of the driving starting point, and you recognize the value of short-term rentals. And as you started doing acquisitions and focusing more on buy and hold for short-term rentals, is there something as you did that, were there some different things that you look at, different attributes, or was it very similar to when you were fixing and flipping?
No, no. I felt like w- I always knew to make the property different. I read a book a long time ago by Seth Godin that said, "Hey, it's called Purple Cow. It's basically you stand out in a crowd of oversea, and anything that you do, you make it as unique and different as possible, so that the customer base will take notice and they'll want to do business with you." So I always knew to do my properties different, and with that came black cabins. Before most people were doing it, we had black cabins for the last several years. I had a purple cabin, hence Purple Cow, and it was a magnetic kind of blue, really, but it wasn't really purple. But of course, doing we finished out garages and made it into game rooms before Bill Faiths of the world. All those guys were talking about it. We were doing all this different stuff and trying to make them unique. Now, a lot of people got into the world over the last several years, and now my properties that were unique 5 years ago maybe aren't as unique anymore. But people are starting to gather and figure this thing out. But yeah, I mean, we knew to kind of set ourselves apart, and we did a lot of stuff different than I did even from flipping houses. We went the extra mile to make them as nice as possible.
Okay. And besides, buying your own short-term rentals, you're also doing management for other investors as well, correct?
Yeah, yeah. I didn't want anything to do with working with the public. I'll be honest with you, outside of my brokerage. But then we're in you and I and several other people are in a private mastermind, and uh, I've seen all these guys like doing really well with property management. I'm like, well, I certainly got the systems, and I've been turning it down for years. And people sought me out and wanted me to manage. So I took on a couple properties earlier this year, and now we're managing five. I don't manage a ton like a lot of people do. I'm very selective. It's got to make a certain dollar amount. It's got to match my Southern Charm Vacay brand, be a beautiful, cute little boutique house. And or a large house. We do have a really nice mansion that we're renting out as well, but it's got to be something different. I'm not, I've had people come in and try to give me a little, uh, for lack of better words, small turd boxes or whatever. I'm just not willing to put that on my portfolio, because at the end of the day, I'm not worried. First of all, I don't care about the $4 or $5,000 a year we'll make. I'd rather have something that's going to make me 25, $30,000 a year more if I'm managing, and then I don't want it to suppress um, my reviews either. So we don't take on just anything. But yeah, that's pretty much what we do. We are managing, and I will grow. I've got people that's tried to get me in Yellowstone. I've had people that's tried to get me over in California. I've got somebody that we just signed a contract on in Chicago. So, I mean, I guess we're going nationwide.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I love about this business, because if you're already doing it for yourself and you've already built that infrastructure, to take on other properties and other listings really is not it's really inconsequential in terms of the scalability that you've put in place. And so you just kind of throw them into the same operation, and you're looking at economies of scale, and the cost that it takes you to manage those additional properties gives you quite a bit of profit in the management fee. And so I like the diversification. I like the ability to have multiple cash flows for that are coming from different sources. And that's definitely,
Mhm.
the management side is definitely a good way to do it. You do make a good point, though. You kind of have to learn how to be selective, because you don't want to start taking on clients and or properties that are going to milk up 80% of your time and not give you that
Yeah,
much more revenue in advance. So there's a way to balance that out too, I think.
absolutely. I think with the management side, I certainly am appreciative of it now, and I wish I had done it years ago. When I was turning people away, because I have management clients where I'm making more money on the management fees than I am on a couple of my lower end short term rentals that I own. So it's you kind of wish you had like a 50-50, portfolio versus what I've got 20 to and 5. So it is what it is. But I would say if I knew how lucrative it was earlier on, I probably would have done it earlier on because I'm a capitalist and I would have went all in on it. But now knowing what I know now, we're growing slowly and steadily and trying to grow with the right property base, and that's kind of where we're at. It's quality over quantity for us.
Nice, nice. Well, that's a good place to be in. You can be very selective. You're not forced to buy. You're not forced to make decisions. So the current makeup of the 25 properties, are they kind of made up in high concentration in certain markets, or is it kind of scattered?
Yeah, so we've got most of them are in North Georgia, spread out between Jasper and Talking Rock to Ellijay, Blue Ridge, Hiawassee. Then on the other side, Dahlonega and Helen. The other ones are the Hilton Head, South Carolina area. We got in earlier on before that area exploded, and you can't even afford to buy out there now. Nothing makes sense to cash flow. So thankfully, I've got those properties earlier on. I do have one by the Battery by the Brave Stadium in Atlanta. We've got one in Gulf Shores, two actually thrown on our third in Mississippi because I was selling it and it just fell through today. We were talking about that before we came on, and I'm going to convert it into a short-term rental because it's got a wonderful beach view. I am building one in no, not Asheville, in Ocean Isle, North Carolina. It should be ready by the end of this year, maybe sooner than later. And we have a couple of luxury tree houses we're building, real houses. They're going to be on pillars, not going to be centered around a tree, but we're calling them the tree houses. But we've been working on this for about a year in Helen, Georgia. We're right there, a couple of miles away from downtown, and that's a really lucrative market if you can build out there. But it's very, very hard to get licensed. Stuff like that. Yeah, we got them all over the place. Just having fun right now.
Very cool. Now, you mentioned early on too that you have like an accredited investor fund that you use for some of your acquisitions. Um, do you use that with a combination of traditional financing, or kind of what's your financing model right now?
Well, it's we would love to max it out and then never have to utilize additional hard money or this or that. But yeah, we're using it in addition to hard money right now. But yeah, we're building houses in the suburbs with the money, and what's really good about it is the fund collateralizes the assets, and then we have like 30. Well, actually, we probably have about 40% equity on every single property. Over the properties that we're building are affordable housing for the suburbs, and the price point, the ARVs are 350 to $400,000, and we're in them for 200 to 250. So there's over $100,000 spread on each one of them. But yeah, that's pretty much how it works. It's a combination of both sides until we max out the fund, and then whenever we do max out the fund, I'll create fund two. And that's the thing. Georgia's just growing so much, and we want to provide housing, and we don't want to provide more mansions. We don't want to provide more, uh, uh, you know, short-term rentals. We want that's a completely separate business that we want. Our mission is to provide affordable housing for people who need the homes, and that's the general public.
So you're never tempted to look at some of those acquisitions and remodels for short-term rentals, even though they may not be in some of the other desirable markets that you're in.
I mean, I'm not saying I won't. I certainly am going to the contract that we had that fell through today in Mississippi. I am certainly going to go down next week and convert that to a short term rental. It's in excellent shape. We bought it dirt cheap, direct to seller, and it wouldn't take maybe $20,000 in 3 days to get it fixed up the way I want it. So it's already staged, fully furnished, and all that stuff. So I'm just going to refinance, put it on my own private portfolio. Investors make their 10% or whatever they get from us based on the money that they put into it. So there's certainly an exception if something doesn't work out according to plan.
No, and that's again what I kind of like about this business. You have multiple exit strategies depending on the property. There's all other types of short-term rental models that are more midterm stays, and you've got things like pad split and assisted living. So there's always kind of these other different potential solutions when it comes to unique properties that might have potential issues with it for what you originally intended. So definitely makes sense. So tell us a little bit about your brokerage business. So on top of all of this, you also have, a strategic alliance where you basically can seek out people that are trying to invest and buy properties to do short-term rentals with, and you guys kind of help with that process as well.
Yeah, so I created a company called STR Wealth Brokers, and it had spurred from my own interest into buying short-term rentals and then focusing in the mountains in North Georgia, spread out all over the mountains. And I was a couple of years, or 2 and 3 years ago, I was speaking on a lot of different stages, the build short-term rentals wealth stage and some Go Abundant stuff, Chris Harder Mastermind. I was just kind of making some circuits and building more of a bunch of followers, I guess. And I'm like, well, people were calling us up and like, hey, we like what you're talking about, what you're doing with the short-term rentals. Can you help us find homes? Of course, my wife's an agent. Then they started coming out of the masses. And I'm like, well, I can't handle this kind of business. So we created a brokerage. I've been a licensed broker for many, many years now. I've been a licensed agent for 20 years and a broker 15. And I used to own my own brokerage. I sold it to a former business partner, not the business partner where I was flipping, but I'm like, well, it's right up my alley. It's kind of like the management. I came by default. I'm like, I'm already doing something. I'm creating this business, this space, and we're all into the mountains. Let me go bring in some of my team members who are agents and put them under my umbrella, because all of us were licensed at the former brokerage that I had created and sold to another business partner. So we started this up a couple of years ago, and my God, I mean, we're killing it over the last 2 years with the helping people get properties, and we're still doing it. We've got 8 agents right now, and we just went into the whole state of Georgia now. We're focused for the last couple of years and in all those cities I was talking about: Talking Rock, LJ, Jasper, Blue Ridge, Hiawassee, Helen, Dahlonega, Cleveland. But now we're also into Macon and Columbus and Atlanta, coastal Georgia, St. Simon, Statesboro, Savannah, and we spread out. And I got agents that are all over the place. And Georgia's a great market because we're growing so well, and I think we're probably one of the most stable southern states. Like, Florida's getting way too overvalued, and it's just so small of a region. But Georgia's got so much farmland, and we can grow out more, and Atlanta's growing out like this. And I think it just makes sense. We need weekend getaways and things like that. So we spread out for our brokerage, and we're helping a lot of buyers. And if anybody in this call wants to work with us, we could certainly connect you, DM me wherever, and we can connect you with one of my agents or my wife. She's still actively working as a realtor.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'll put your website out on the comments here in a little bit so everybody has that. So is there like a standard kind of target return when folks are trying to do acquisitions to buy properties from what you've seen? And are you able to achieve that in most markets?
Well, here's the thing. When you build a pro forma with short-term rentals, we all know that what AirDNA spits off. We know now. 2 years ago, we're like, AirDNA says this. That's the Holy Bible. 2 years later, we're like, no, that's a load of crock. I mean, it's a definitely good governing way to evaluate your property. But then now you got to really, like, now that we know what we know, and some people have been bit, and even myself, we've got to evaluate maybe the STR Insights, all these different places, Rabu, like, just certainly go in here and look at different listings and evaluate and build a pro forma. For me personally, I will not touch a property unless I'm making at least 25% cash on cash return on investment. And I study it out now. I study out exceedingly. I put a lot of time into my evaluations now if I do take anything on my personal portfolio. And I got to make that 25% plus cash on cash return on investment. But yeah, I would recommend the general public, 20% plus. If you're not getting that, I mean, I see some people buying properties And it's kind of scary. They're going to lose money from day one, and they don't even know. I mean, we are selling properties for other clients, and the buyers that are buying them, of course, we don't represent that side, so we're going to do what our client wants us to do. We list these homes, and they're buying them at too high of a price, and I'm like, you guys are newbies, and you haven't put and built your pro forma, and we're working for our client, which is the seller, but these buyers, I'm just like shaking my head sometimes, like, man, there's no way you're going to make the money. So you just got to be careful. I think you always need to build out a pro forma and try to at least get 20 to 25% plus. If you can get 40, 50%, even better.
Yeah, I mean, the property we just bought up on Lake Lanier that we just finished up, we did our original analysis came in at around 28% cash on cash return, and you know how it is when you start a rehab, your costs go a little bit higher. So I think that number got adjusted down a little bit. But I agree with you. I think if it's not north of 20, 25, it's just because you've got that option. Why would you do something that's 10 or 15%? Like, you always want to be able to have a barometer that lets you look at that option. And so, are you finding any of those higher return acquisition opportunities in more urban areas, or are most of them kind of vacation-y type mountain or lake areas?
My greatest performing assets are in areas that are not vacation areas. The reason why is people gravitate to the vacation areas. That's what they think of when they think short-term rental or Airbnb, if that's what people call it. What I like to do is go into these piggyback markets. You got your vacation markets, and if you get in early on before everybody goes there, you can do really well. But then eventually they get saturated. If you go into these secondary markets or these piggyback markets from the vacation markets and or smaller areas like we're doing in like we did in South Carolina. I'm not actually in Hilton Head. I'm in this charming, beautiful town in Bluffton, and I bought in 2018. Now, I've been looking to buy more out there because we kill it, but the dollar amount doesn't even make sense because the appreciation of the whole market over there is just gone up, asinine, just like most places have. So I would say it's piggyback markets, next city or two over from a vacation market, because everybody's going to go to that vacation market. But then you have this overflow into these second or third tier markets right behind it, or maybe a market like a Columbus, Georgia, or Macon, Georgia, where there's traveling nurses or military base or this or that. There's not as much competition. I've learned it, and I'm listening to the book right now, not right now, but $100 million offers by Alex Hormozy, and he talks about your offer, and basically what he means is he talks about I'm not even getting that. He basically tells you go into a market where whatever your value proposition is or whatever your product is, it doesn't necessarily matter. But he says go into a market where there's less competition. And now that I've looked back at my portfolio, I realize that I've succeeded and I've also failed. I succeeded because I got to know all the markets that I'm in earlier on when nobody was there, but I failed when I started realizing 2 years ago that the Blue Ridge area, I wouldn't advise too many people to get into Blue Ridge. The Blue Ridge area got really, really saturated. Unless you get a really good deal, the Blue Ridge area got extremely saturated, and I knew it 2 years ago. And I should have started selling off some properties and started spreading out. Right after we finished our portfolio out there 2 years ago, I should have just kind of like done that. But it is what it is. Now I've got a lot of assets out there, and we did just put them on the market, and we're selling a couple, and we're learning just like everybody else does. Just because we're experts in the field and been doing this for 20 years doesn't mean that we know everything. And we're still learning and still kind of semi gambling just like anybody else. And yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I think the takeaway there is that you use it as a learning experience, and you kind of mentally make a note of that learning experience. We do the same thing. We're in and out of properties for the same reason. You have shifts in the market, and they may not be as profitable as they used to be, and those margins start getting tighter. And, a lot of times it makes sense to sell, or in my case, some of our master leases, we let them expire and kind of moved on because, because of some of those shifts. And so you can take those as learning experiences as you move forward, and it just only makes you better. Right. So, we're always learning. Every week we're learning something new. So definitely. So what are your plans like moving forward, specifically with the short-term rental business? So you've got about 25 now. Before you tell us what your future plans are, maybe tell me a little bit about your operation and how many folks you have running that for guest communications, back office, revenue management, things like that.
Yeah. So I run the price lab side, the revenue side. I don't let anybody do that. I'll go in for 20 to 30 minutes every single morning, religiously, 7 days a week, holidays and weekends. And I will play with pricing. I don't want anybody touching that. But I do have an office manager here in the US, here where I live, and she handles all of our different calls that we not calls, but all the different problems. Like if an HVAC goes out or we got a leaky faucet or something like that, she's handling the contractors as well as paying our bills. I also have a virtual bookkeeper that is full time that works for me because I've got multiple businesses. She handles everything and gives me reporting on a job that we're building or flipping. And then also, like you were talking about short term rentals, she's giving me my P&Ls every single month and building out spreadsheets so I can look back at the last 12 months, the current timing, and start forecasting for the next few months. From there, I've got virtual assistants. I've got a couple of VAs that are running my business and doing the guest communication, rank breeze, all the different things that we do to make sure we're staying on top of the rankings and to run my channel manager, owner res, and working with guests. From there, let's see, my wife well, actually both of us, my wife and I, we both kind of oversee everything from a high level. And of course, we've got a million different handymen and carpenters and contractors and cleaners too. So we've got those through different portals, and that's pretty much how that works right there. That's we're running a pretty tight engine. We're running a really good thing right now, and it's working really well for us.
There's not many other industries that you can have a multi-million-dollar business and not have a boatload of employees to hire and fire and have the HR headache. Same thing with my wife and I. We have 0 employees right now. We manage everything with outside vendors for our cleaning teams, our maintenance team. We have virtual assistants on our back office. And so, there's a way to structure this so that you're not, you don't need to have a small army of people. You can basically outsource the vast majority of the work that needs to happen to run the operation. So it's another benefit to it, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it's awesome. And I forgot one person we did. Well, actually, I just laid them off. I didn't really like the material, but I did have a VA that was running our social media for all of our properties and Instagram and Facebook accounts, but quality of it was just terrible. So I laid them off. I'm probably going to rehire sooner or later, but it's a lean team, and most of it's virtual. I've only got one person that goes into the office from time to time, but she's pretty much virtual too, even though she's an American. So it's everybody else is outsourced from another country.
Very cool. Very cool. So what's next for short-term rentals?
Next for short-term rentals, I want to sell 50% of my portfolio, get some capital back, the return on equity. We invested a lot into North Georgia. I'm not saying North Georgia is bad. I'm just saying I've got too many homes in one area and the asset allocation is bad. So for example, what do I mean by that? For example, in December, we had the I wouldn't say a blizzard, but whatever they called it, a bubble, like
the freeze.
The freeze. Yeah. So many homes in North Georgia, and I had to give massive refunds. I think we lost $30,000 in a week because we hit this massive freeze and busted pipes and HVACs went out. People were getting pissy and things like that. But none of my other regions, South Carolina, Gulf Shores, Mississippi, Atlanta, none of those other regions got hit. So I think 15 in one market that I personally own. I don't mind managing 15, but that I personally own, they've got to go. I've got 3 properties that are lifestyle assets. I'll keep one in Blue Ridge. I'll keep one in LJ. I'll keep one in Helen. The rest of them's got to go. So that's one thing. We've got the ones that's got to go. Those are going on the market, and then that's return on equity of stress level, and then also the money. Like a lot of those are just kind of breaking even or barely making money. I can put that into another cash engine like multifamily, but we're talking about short-term rentals here. I certainly want to go after boutique hotels. I did have a boutique hotel under contract 3 years ago, but then guess what happened? COVID comes along and scared me off my rocker, and I backed out. So I feel behind on the times, because I know a lot of people have been getting into that over the last 3 years. A little bit of FOMO there, but in God's time, I'll get something that makes sense. On top of that, we are custom building, like I said earlier, 2 luxury tree houses. They're not going to be real tree houses. They're going to be homes, kind of like beach homes on piers, but they're going to be completely different. I got a really badass design that's going to be cool, and it's 3 minutes to downtown Helen. We're doing more building projects. I'm trying to find less populated and also less saturated markets now.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like Alex Hermosi said in that book, you need to go where there's no competition. And it doesn't mean that you won't have any competition, but I can certainly take my talent and my skill set over 20 years, plus my design talent, my wife's stuff, and we can go into a smaller market and crush it. And there's heavy regulated markets out there that most turnkey short-term rental operators would never go into, because they don't want to deal with the licensing. They don't want to go in and put the install of the sprinklers in. I know a market right now, and I'll tell you guys because I don't want you guys going out there, but I'm going into a market where you literally, like, they scrutinize the hell out of these short-term rentals, and they only allow 50 in this market, and I can still get in. But you got to go through a crazy amount of work to get in, like installing sprinklers. But once you get in, you're going to make a killing. You're going to make a killer amount of money. So now that I know, because I've been in short-term rentals for 10 years, we had our first one in Savannah for 4 or 5 years before we even bought our second one. And I'm going at a slower pace. I haven't made a short-term rental acquisition since last year, about October, and we have bought land and we're building properties. But yeah, we're going slower. I'm not rushing into things. I'm evaluating. I'm studying markets more, and we're doing custom builds. And then we're also trying to deplete inventory so we can buy new inventory. So it's a return on equity. Take the lower cash flowing properties and roll it in through a 1031 with a profit I'll make into a higher cash flowing property, and just keep pyramiding the wealth. So that's kind of my process right now. On top of that, I got other stuff going on too. Looking to build commercial flex space and all that, but we're doing short-term rentals here. I do have a really cool project outside of short-term rentals I can tell you about if you're interested.
Nice. So on the luxury tents, the tree houses, what are those running to build for each one?
Probably about, they're going to be super high end, probably about 200 a foot. But they'll probably be worth about, they're going to be so different. I bet I can get about 550 to 600 a foot out of them. If I wanted to sell them, I'm not going to sell them.
What kind of square footage?
1,000 square feet each.
Nice.
So we took, here's what I'm talking about, guys. I had a multimillionaire client in 2007, 2008 tell me that if you're willing to do the work that nobody else is willing to do, you're going to make the money that nobody else is going to make. Of course, Dave Ramsey has his own saying of something similar to that, but he hates debt. So I ain't going to reference him any more than that. I love debt. I think at the end of the day, if you did something like I did, I bought into Helen, Georgia. The White County in Helen, Georgia is hard to deal with, and you can barely get a license. But if you navigate through that, you can get a license. But I bought a lot that I've had to go to variance meetings. I've had to go in front of city council, split a lot that was under mountain protection. There's no guarantee you're going to get it. I had to put my money where my mouth was. Had to go deal with all this stuff. And we're sitting here 14 months later and just about to start building. So, there's passion, there's time, it's a slow burn, but the payoff is just going to be amazing. I mean, and the same thing with Ocean Isle, North Carolina. We bought in two years ago, and we've been sitting here waiting for the builder to build for over a year, and he just started building, and the comps have raised up so much. I'm in this property for 1.15, and they got comps now that are going for 1.6. So I've got $500,000 in equity just by doing the slow burn thing. So I think it's quality over quantity for me now.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, listen, that's great, Brandon. I appreciate you taking the time today. I put your website in the comments below us for STR Wealth Brokers. So for those of you that are watching or watch the recording of this, feel free to reach out. I know I'm going to probably check into your team. We have a lot of our clients that are looking for different specific things, not only in Georgia, different areas of Georgia. And so that's good to hear that you're expanding into other markets. So thanks again so much for joining. And, those of you for B&B Investing Group, if you're interested in learning more about what we do in our program and helping our investor clients, we can schedule a quick 10-15 minute call, see if it's a good fit for you or not. Feel free to reach out to me directly on Facebook Messenger. And then Brandon, again, appreciate the time and look forward to keeping in touch. I know we're going to get a lunch on the calendar sometime soon and catch up again. So I appreciate you doing this today.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. It's my pleasure.
All right, sounds good. Take care. Have a good rest of the day.
Yep.
Thanks for jumping on the BNB Investing Podcast this week. Please click on the subscribe and like button below. For more trainings, property tours, and content, you can join my BNB Investing Facebook group by clicking below. If you are ready to grow your short-term rental portfolio and maximize your monthly income, you can click on the link below to schedule a quick strategy call with Rich or someone from his team to see how we can help or point you in the right direction. Stay tuned for our next episode and hope to see you on the BNB Investing Group podcast.